Greetings and welcome to episode 192 of The Words About Gamescast, a weekly video game podcast for words about games. I'm your host, Amy Alexander, and I am joined this week by Patrick Welsh.
Hello.
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 I was doing that intro and I was doing that thing I sometimes do where I couldn't keep my eyes on the camera. I was like,
Well, now you're overthinking it, and you're just drawing attention to it now.
I know. I like to draw attention to the things I get wrong because then, like, no one can go, you got that thing wrong, because I just immediately go, I got that thing wrong.
I don't know if that's good for your mental health, particularly.
It's been a while since the last time I did it. So I'm sure it's fine. These things usually work themselves out. How are you, Patrick? Welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, thanks. It's lovely to be here.
That's good. I sometimes worry that it's not lovely to be here and people just do this begrudgingly. Like, oh, I guess it's my turn to do the podcast now. But it's good that it's lovely to be here.
I've just told you, stop overthinking these things.
I'm an overthinker. It's what I do.
I am also an overthinker.
I'm going to spend like at least an hour after we finish recording this podcast trying to figure out if that shadow has always been there and what's causing it. Because I'm sure that's never been a thing.
Stop drawing it, because now it's all I could look at. I'm just going to put my mouse over.
Just close the video window down. You don't need to see me. It's fine. For anyone that doesn't know, this is the Words About Gamescast, where every week we discuss what's been going on in gaming, the games industry, and gaming culture over the past 7 days, and then we tell you what games are coming out over the course of the next week. This week, we're discussing the various earnings calls from the past week and a bit, from the likes of EA, Ubisoft, and Activision Blizzard, and we're going to try and figure out what reveals and releases could be in store for 2020 and beyond. There's also some other new stuff in there, but we'll see if we get to it. We're going to be fortune tellers this week, and we're going to be like, what games could possibly be coming out? Because earnings calls in and of themselves. Have you ever listened to an earnings call?
Not the whole thing, no.
Like, let me tell you, pretty dull.
Yeah, I would think so, especially if you're not like a shareholder or have any kind of idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think I've mentioned it on the podcast there. They say 15 words when like 4 would do. Like,
that's management.
And then you just sort of sit there going,
that's what people who are into business and management do. They have to, throw in words like synergize and
damn synergizing.
Yeah.
Synergies.
It's like we're going to synergize productivity rather than just work hard.
like those Blizzard company values. Every voice matters.
It's like 100 words to say nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. There are also timestamps in the description below the video, so you can watch however you want. We're very pro-choice here on the Words About Gamescast, and depending on where you are in the world, that phrase may come with some
that's
historical weight that I didn't consider when I said it. Let's move swiftly on. It's going to be one of those kind of podcasts.
I think you meant it in sort of like, again, the sort of business pro-consumer sense of we believe in choice.
We believe in your choice.
We believe customers should have the choice to die in the streets because they can't afford healthcare. Hey, we're getting political.
Oh, shit. It happened. We don't want to get political. We'll find out why later. Foreshadowing. Let's jump into the first story, which is EA planning to publish 14 games in the next fiscal year. This is from Rebecca Valentine over at GamesIndustry.biz, who writes, EA gave its investors a rough outline of what to expect from its release slate beginning in April of 2020, and it looks to be a bulkier release year than this last one has been. In the current fiscal year, which for EA ends in March, the publisher launched only 7 titles, with a planned 8th in NBA Live indefinitely delayed and nothing more planned for the final quarter. But during its Q3 earnings call, COO and CFO, Blake Jorgensen, announced EA's plans to publish a total of 14 games in the coming fiscal year, 10 of which appear to be internally developed. 4 of these titles will be sports titles, with both FIFA and Madden already confirmed as 2 of the 4. And EA has already tipped its hand slightly as to the remaining 2, though its total count of titles is a bit off. During its last earnings call for Q2, the publisher suggested NHL would retain its place as a regular sports title, but it also said that it would be adding at least one more sports title to its annual slate. Sports. Moving on.
Sports.
The next 4 titles will, quote, draw from the breadth of EA's IP, unquote. And here's where things get fuzzy. Again, going back to the Q2 earnings call, EA said that it would have exciting remasters of fan favourites, including the Command & Conquer game we've already disclosed, and there's also that Medal of Honor VR game that's already been announced. EA has also said it has projects in the works at Motive, DICE, BioWare, and Criterion, though it's unclear which of these, if any, is part of the 4 Jorgensen was referring to. To round out the EA-developed roster, the publisher is also bringing out 2 mobile titles in soft launch next fiscal year. Finally, the remaining 4 EA-published games will be from smaller developers, which is up from the previously promised 2 mentioned in the Q2 earnings. All of that is aside from EA's promised releases of a new Battlefield, Dragon Age, and Star Wars at the end of financial year 22. All of this is part of what Jorgensen described on the call as a broad-based model intended to keep the publisher from relying on any one title, decreasing the risk if any one of the games sells below expectations.
I don't just release Call of Duty every year.
Funny story about that we'll get to later on. They're going to release 14 games between April 2020 and March 2021, and none of them will be Dragon Age. So, do you think we could? I think we could figure out what's coming out.
Can we
really put our minds to it? I mean, normally at this point I would go, "What are your thoughts on that?" But I mean, like, it's a fiscal earnings call.
Yeah.
The thoughts on that are yes, EA certainly does publish some games.
Yes.
But they're going to release 14 games. 4 of them are sports games, which leaves 10.
Yeah.
2 of them are mobile games, which leaves 8. 4 of them are smaller games, which will be from their EA originals partners. So, like, Joseph Fares' next game will probably be amongst the 4. But then it's like, well, who else? They're partnered with Joseph Fares. I don't know whether the team that did Sea of Solitude was still partnered with them, but then I think, well, that would be quite quick, like, to release a second game. Because these are just games that are coming out in the next 12-ish months. And then that does leave 4 other games that are coming out. Do you have any predictions? You know I love predictions.
Yeah, I know you love predictions. I don't know necessarily. I sort of wanted to go for the list of what they actually did in 2019, but that was the year 2019, not the fiscal year 2019. But that's like I mean, it's like Formula and Need for Speed. We're pointing out Apex Legends and Anthem came out like a month before fiscal 2019.
Fuck, I forgot. Yes, Need for Speed and Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville both came out last year.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about those games.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people didn't even realize that there was a Need for Speed last year. Maybe there'll be one this year. There probably will be. There usually is.
What game will they release?
Maybe Criterion's working on it.
When was the last time Criterion even released a game?
I don't.
I keep referencing.
Can't have been Paradise. There must have been something since then. It's the last time I can remember them doing it.
I keep referencing them because the last time I remember seeing them at E3 was when they did that weird video where it was like, we're going to make an all-vehicle video game, and it was just like, here's all the research we've just been doing, and it was a video of them like driving Jeeps around and like jumping out of planes and shit. And I remember saying at the time, like, did they just go on a fucking on a massive like holiday, like use like video game development as an excuse. Yeah, so the last game that they made, the last game that they were the main developer of was Need for Speed Most Wanted, which came out in 2012.
Yeah.
They've done additional work on Need for Speed Rivals in 2013, Star Wars Battlefront X-Wing VR Mission in 2016, Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2017, and Battlefield 5 in 2018.
Yeah. So they've just become one of EA's battery farm of developers, big AAA games. Which is, I mean, that's how games are produced these days. That's why there's like 12 Ubisoft studios in each Assassin's Creed.
Yes, well,
It's
that's
kind
how
of
Call of Duty is made.
It's kind of sad that's what Criterion's doing now.
Well, I mean,
So,
they mentioned specifically as creators in this earnings call, projects in the works at Motive, Dice, BioWare, and Criterion. So maybe they are making their own game. Maybe Burnout's coming back. Like everybody forgot about Need for Speed last year.
I think that's a carrot that's been dangled in front of us for the past decade. I mean, maybe they seem to have given up on Need for Speed.
Yeah,
maybe
it's
they're hoping
weird.
for, like a revival of interest in Burnout.
Remember when Need for Speed was like the shit, right? It was like the biggest thing on.
Was it ever really the shit?
I think it was like for driving games. I'm not really big into driving games, so I don't really know. Like I like Burnout but that was because you crashed cars as opposed to like drove them sensibly, which was my thing. I feel like Need for Speed used to be a big tentpole, maybe.
It got a film.
It did get a film, but that was with the guy from Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah, with Aaron Paul in it.
Yeah, he drove off at the end of Breaking Bad, and
yeah, everyone
Need for
joked that
Speed.
it was a direct sequel to Breaking Bad, and then they did
And then they did a direct sequel to Breaking Bad. Jokes on us. I mean, I'd hope they're making something. It'd probably be a car game, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, yeah. If they're the lead developer, I'd imagine so. I'd imagine they're working on the new Need for Speed, or they're bringing back Burn. Which of those is more likely, I suppose, is kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
DICE will presumably be making a shooter.
One would imagine.
Battlefield, probably.
Battlefield's not like it's weird in a case of like, oh, we've got projects at these studios, and it's like, well, do you mean projects that are coming out this fiscal year, like coming, or do you mean just in general? Like,
yeah, like when they say BioWare, it's like I don't think BioWare are releasing anything.
BioWare will be releasing Anthem.
Well, when I say not releasing, I don't think they're releasing anything new in fiscal year 2020. I think that they're probably going to relaunch and maybe go down I mean, do you count like Destiny? Would you count a Destiny release as like a release?
I'd count like a full. I'm tangled up. I count a full expansion as a release, like when Destiny does like Shadowkeep, for example. Like that's
if it's like a Taken King around.
Yeah, I think it'll be like a No Man's Sky next type deal,
which is probably what they're doing.
Which is like, let's relaunch Anthem because it went so well the first time. I think what BioWare's working on.
Because when you're in a hole, you just keep digging.
Yeah. I mean, you know, people did pay money for that game, and some of them might be a bit pissed off if they shut it down in a year. I think what BioWare's
apparently not.
I don't think anyone cares anymore. But I kind of want to reinstall it and play it and try it and see what it's like now. Like,
I recently learned that the soundtrack is really good.
Is it? I don't actually remember.
Yeah, it is actually like really good, very evocative. It's probably the best thing about it.
I don't
know how to play it.
I think I blocked that Anthem from my memory. I think what they're probably working on for the next financial year, though, is probably a Mass Effect Trilogy remaster, because they mention it somewhere in the article. Like, I can't find it now. Here it is. Yeah, EA said it would have exciting remasters of fan favorites. That sounds to me like Mass Effect. a Mass Effect trilogy is probably getting remastered.
I mean, it could be porting Plants vs Zombies to PS5.
It could be, but yes. I mean, it could be theory or anything. I've got a conspiracy theory about DICE. You want to hear it?
Okay.
So, of
Yes,
what
I want to
DICE,
hear
DICE could be working on.
about DICE.
That's not Battlefield. So, like, strap in because we're going on a journey. You and I, Patrick. So, a couple
All
weeks
aboard
ago,
the Crazy Jane. Aye.
this is pure like wish list stuff. This is what I think's gonna happen. This is what I want's gonna happen, and here's how I'm explaining how it's gonna happen. So I think that DICE, because Vince Zampella took over at DICE LA a couple of weeks ago. It was a news story. I don't think we covered it on the podcast, but I remember it happening. And Respawn are busy working on Apex Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Medal of Honor, the Medal of Honor VR game. Or a VR game. I can't remember if it's the Medal of Honor VR game or just... They're working on a VR game. And they'll probably be making the next Star Wars game. Jedi 2. Vincent Pella takes over at DICE LA. A studio known for making first-person shooters. What kind of first-person shooter could DICE be working on that isn't Battlefield or Battlefront? Titanfall. Who would you get to run a Titan? Who would you get to run a studio making Titanfall? You get the guy who runs Respawn Entertainment. Basically, I think they're making Titanfall. I want them to be making Titanfall 3. I demand it.
Yeah, no, I think if that exists, it's in pre-production at Respawn. I don't think they're letting go of that.
Yeah, but they're big.
Because I mean, you might as well have BioWare be work Titanfall by that logic.
Please no.
As interesting as that would be.
That would be an interesting pivot for BioWare. Like, we're making the next Titanfall. Really?
Yes, you can now have sex with the giant robot. Hooray!
Maybe I do want BioWare to make a Titanfall game.
Yeah!
And
now
what if...
Put it in your head.
Now that you've put it in my head, I definitely want to have sex with a Titan.
Maybe DICE is working on Mass Effect.
What if they just did that? How cool would that be if they just shuffled all of their studios up?
I think that would be a massive, massive fuck you to all the studios to just sort of pass off your IP from one to the other like that. I think it's a really crappy thing to do.
That's very terrible. We talked about Motive Studios on a podcast recently because I was struggling to remember that they existed because they haven't really made anything. Which is the other name check studio. And it's like, okay. They're making an untitled Star Wars video game with a release date of TBA.
That was the Jade Redmond one.
Jade Raymond Studio, yeah.
Redmond.
From you know, the Ubisoft. She helped create Assassin's Creed. They also hired Kim Swift, who created Portal. So I'm curious to see, because they're talking about releasing a Star Wars game not next financial year, the one after. Like, I don't know. I feel like they're going to release a Star Wars game this year. Again, like...
How long did they have the license?
10 years.
Right.
And I don't remember... when they got it when they cancelled Star Wars 1313. When did EA get the Star Wars license?
Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, like late 20.
Okay, EA signed a 10-year deal with Disney in 2013. So they've still got like 3 years left on the Star Wars license. It might behoove them to make some games with it. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If they're thinking, do we need to start annualizing this just to get what we can out of it? Because, you know, it might just be a feeling. Maybe Disney wants to reconsider. I mean, in fairness, I don't think Disney cares.
I think Disney can look at something like Marvel, who are instead of taking the Marvel video game license and going to, I don't know, Activision and going, here you go, like, you've got this for 10 years, make us 10 years worth of games.
Yeah.
Like, they've just gone and found specific partners to make specific games. So, like, Spider-Man, Insomniac, that makes perfect sense. they've gone out and made the Iron Man VR game with another studio, and then Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 came out and sold pretty reasonably well on Switch. I would, if I was Disney and I was in charge of like figuring out who was going to be making Star Wars games from 2023 onwards, I'd be looking at that and going, maybe that's the way forward.
Yeah.
Unless EA does something in the next 3 years to change my mind about that.
Well, unless EA has already done something in the past, however many years it's been, like mishandling Battlefront 2 and therefore dragging Disney's name through the mud with them. Because I don't think Disney fundamentally doesn't care about making games. And I don't think cares particularly who it farms the games out to, as long as they're profitable. But I think they care if they're brought into a selling loot boxes to kids.
Yeah, when they're waking up and the news
You know?
story is like they're addicting kids to gambling with their Star Wars game, then there's a conversation I think that needs to happen.
Like it's going to be interesting to see if that gets renewed.
It will be, and like
whether EA's gonna like try to rush out a sequel to Fallen Order.
well, this is why I think they're gonna accelerate releasing some Star Wars games, but being more careful with like monetization, surprise mechanics, that kind of thing. So I think, I mean, they're obviously making a sequel to Fallen Order. That's just a given.
Yeah.
Right. It's the only game I can remember in recent memory where a AAA publisher has announced the sales figures for the game and gone, it sold above expectations. Normally we only ever hear the opposite, so
yeah.
Plus they nailed it. It's a great game.
Yeah, I also think Disney's kind of wanting to wind down on Star Wars generally, so they probably don't want to oversaturate.
Yeah, let the video games do their thing for a while, and let's just leave the movies alone, because a lot of people are mad about the movies. And I feel like that might be a good strategy. Like, keep the Star Wars embers burning.
I think they need to. They need to stop and think about what they're doing with Star Wars, and probably let it go away.
Yeah, as long as the games are good, though, they'll keep making games. Like, even the TV stuff, like Mandalorian, is quite popular. The new series, the final season of Clone Wars is coming out, and everyone's really excited. So, I think it was just the movies that everybody was a bit weird about.
Yeah, well, Star Wars fans can be terrible sometimes.
Indeed, they can. Let's move on to the next company on our hit list of fiscal earnings calls. Ubisoft promises 5 AAA games before April 2021. This is from Wesley Ian Poole over at Eurogamer. He writes, Ubisoft has promised 5 AAA games before April 2021, one of which is reportedly a new Far Cry game. In a financial call last week, the company said 3 of those games will launch in the third quarter of its next financial year, which is October to December 2020, and 2 will launch in the fourth quarter, January to March 2021. So what are the games? Ubisoft confirmed 3 of them, Watch Dogs Legion, Gods and Monsters, and Rainbow Six Quarantine. The other 2 are a Vikings-themed Assassin's Creed and the next Far Cry, according to Kotaku's Jason Schreier. One of the 5 games was delayed to the fourth quarter of the next financial year, although Ubisoft didn't say which one. What of the long-in-development Beyond Good and Evil 2? That's not coming out until after March 2021, Ubisoft confirmed on the call. Also absent from the next financial year is MIA Pirates game Skull and Bones. I was really annoyed when I read this the first time. I was like, "Oh, they're releasing 5 games, and we only know what 3 of them are. I'll bet the other ones are Far Cry." And then Jason Schreier just fucking scooped me on Twitter, and he was like, "It's Far Cry, guys." And I was like, "God damn it!" I felt really smart for a second there, Schreier, and you did me like that.
Well, I immediately said, "Well, I bet one of them is Assassin's Creed," and then everyone said that apparently it's all but leaked that the Viking Assassin's Creed. So
Ragnarok. I don't know if that's the working title.
I think it was the working title, and that was the name going around. I'd imagine it change.
It did. When Syndicate leaked, it had a weird working title too.
Yeah. I think Ragnarok is a good name because I think that's descriptive in a way that Odyssey also is, and it sort of describes the setting.
Yeah.
And also what's going on. Whereas Syndicate means or Unity, Brotherhood means nothing really. Like nothing about that. Nothing about Syndicate says like Victorian London.
You're actually
nothing
right.
About,
it doesn't.
Community says Revolutionary France. Like if they call it Assassin's Creed Revolution, that would have made more sense.
That would have
But
made a great deal of sense. Yeah.
it's probably going to be Assassin's Creed Abstract now instead of Ragnarok. I mean, I get not wanting to call it Ragnarok because that's just going to mess up the SEO with
Thor Ragnarok.
MCU, so
yeah.
Also, if you don't have a fucking Ragnarok, I'm going to be really disappointed. Sorry, if you don't end the world,
Assassin's Creed doesn't really end the world in a sort of Ragnarok-esque fashion.
If Fenris and Odin do not kill each other at the final, I will be very angry.
I like Assassin's Creed Abstract now, and I think they should stick with that title. But yeah, it's going to be Assassin's Creed. It's going to be Far Cry. Like, a lot of people were like, maybe this is it. Maybe Splinter Cell's finally coming back.
No,
and I was like, no, guys. I want it as much as anyone, but it's not happening. If they're only doing the 5 games, and Watch Dogs, Gods and Monsters, Rainbow Six.
3 of them are confirmed, and 2 of them are basically confirmed.
Two of them are so obvious, like to guess.
I mean, that's quite a light schedule for Ubisoft, given how completely bonkers they usually are E3.
Well, Watch Dogs and Gods and Monsters was supposed to come out around about like now, like sort of February, March time, because they delayed everything. After Breakpoint was a disaster. And like they've done all the internal shake-ups and stuff where they've gone like they've hired more people and broken everything off into teams, so their games aren't being sort of managed by the same couple of people. So like everything got delayed. So it's kind of like pushed. Nothing's coming out in the first half of the year from Ubisoft, and then it's like an explosion in like the second half of the year, or the second half of the financial year, I guess, since everything's coming out from October onwards. I'm interested in about they specifically said AAA games, so I wonder if they're going to try and do some smaller UbiArts experiments type games like they've done in the past.
I mean, AAA could mean anything. In fairness, it doesn't. It's kind of a broad remit. I think the term sort of losing a lot of its cachet.
AAA is becoming. I was trying to figure this out
because no one's going to go and say, "Oh yes, it's going to be a double A."
Yeah, no, I was trying to figure this out because I played Journey to the Savage Planet last couple of weeks ago, and I was just thinking about it. It's like it was published by 505 Games. Is it a AAA game? No, I don't think it's a AAA game. Okay, but what about Control? Well, yeah, that's a AAA game. But that was published by 505 Games. And I was like, shit, is Control not a AAA game? And then I just kind of went down this rabbit hole. And
I don't think Control is a AAA game, in fairness. I mean, again, we're talking about semantics and definition. I mean, the truth is that all games are either AAA or indie. We sort of lost the middle ground towards the higher, the fag end of the last generation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them didn't make the jump to HD, and then the financial crash really helped them either.
And now it's all just words and letters.
Like mercenaries and
shit.
The crackdowns of the world, I suppose. It's like everything.
Made the jump to the next.
Crackdown made the jump. But, it's maybe not the best example, but there's sort of like there's the AAA space. And everything kind of below that is sort of like £10 going on an eShop.
Yeah.
Or free to play, which is kind of its own thing, or a mobile game, which is its own.
Which is a separate thing entirely, because you get things like Titanfall Assault on mobile, sitting right next to Grindstone, on the Apple Shop. I can never remember what the Apple Shop's called, but
it's called the Apple Store.
Apple Store, thank you.
Yeah, it's honestly that boring.
I thought that would have had a fancy name like the eShop, PSN. No. So they're going to launch 3 games at the end of the year, coincide with next generation consoles, and 2 in the fourth quarter. I mean, I would imagine Far Cry is coming out in the fourth quarter, so because it usually comes out at March time anyway.
Yeah,
they're not going to. I doubt they're going to release an Assassin's Creed game in February,
No,
March. So that's
no.
coming in October.
Be
I'd
cool if they
imagine.
did, but I
It'd
don't
be
think they are.
interesting if they did, but they won't do that.
No,
So one
absolutely
of
not.
Watch Dogs Legion, Gods, Monsters, and Rainbow Six Quarantine is one of the games that was delayed
Yeah.
to the fourth quarter. And my money's probably on Rainbow Six.
I think it'd either Rainbow Six or Gods and Monsters, but I think Rainbow Six would make the ones that would make the most sense to push back, because a Tom Clancy first person shooter is probably not the best thing to throw around in the
Call of
sort of
Duty
like end of
range.
year scrub, because that's what happened to what's it
Titanfall too.
Titanfall 2, but I was thinking more of the Last Ghost. I forget what it was.
Yes,
The one that had the
Breakpoint.
Breakpoint. That was the one that sort
Yeah,
of
it's
got
like they've
curb
already.
stomped under Call of Duty.
Yeah, it's like Assassin's Creed sells itself. Watch Dogs, they've already done the hard work getting people to pay attention to Watch Dogs because it was the one thing that was like really like memorable from E3 last year, and all they have to do is carry that on this year. And Gods and Monsters, like I can see how they could sell that as being like like, oh, it looks a bit like Breath of the Wild. Oh, it's an open world game. Oh, look, like Greek mythology, like fantasy, monsters fighting, like all that stuff. Like, whereas Rainbow Six Quarantine, I think you want to move that out the way. For starters, you're absolutely right. Of like, you don't want to be anywhere near Call of Duty unless your name is Battlefield, and like
Leaving that.
yeah, like we don't get many first-person shooters in the first part of a year, like in general. So
I mean, that's when Wildlands came out.
yeah, Wildlands, the first one came out in like a March time, and it was one of the best-selling games of that year.
Yeah, it came out admittedly in March, April 2017. Admittedly, that's when like every open world game ever came out. It was just absolutely
Zelda,
crackers.
Horizon.
Yeah,
that was a good year.
Mass Effect Andromeda,
Persona
5.
Persona came out that year too.
The Switch.
The Nintendo Switch. Which just outsold the Xbox One. Yeah, it makes sense.
I think releasing it then made a lot more sense than having it be yet another interchangeable murder simulator set in the Middle East.
You're not wrong. But yeah, it is.
No, I'm not wrong.
It is one of those weird things where it is just like, yeah, like get it out the way. Like you've got more of a chance of finding like your own space in February than you do in November. Like, unless it's 2020 and every fucking game in the world is coming out in March, April.
Like if it does well, it can boost your earnings towards the end of the year, and if it does bad, no one's going to notice.
Yeah, unless you tell people, no one's going to really go, oh, Rainbow Six Warrior. I struggle to remember that game exists, like, historically, so yeah. Poor Beyond Good and Evil 2, though. It's just never coming out.
Never coming out.
Like...
Well, it is going to come out and it's going to be terrible. I think its moment has come and gone.
I think its moment came and gone a long time ago. Like, they held off on that. They held off on that so fucking long. Because there was the reveal at E3, and it didn't make as much of an impact as I think everybody expected it to.
It's very different from the first Beyond Good and Evil.
It is also very different from the first Beyond Good and Evil.
Like, we still don't know what kind of game that is. Like, the first Beyond Good and Evil was kind of like a sort of small-scale Zelda light that tanked like a stone thrown into the sea.
Yeah, it came, like, Beyond Good and Evil came out in 2003.
Yeah.
And then
I think around about the same time as Prince of Persia, so I think Ubisoft did it no favors there.
Yeah. And then the rumors started. The rumors started about a sequel in 2007, and then they initially, like, they released the initial teaser trailer in 2008, and then they didn't do the E3 reveal until 2017. And it's just like Beyond Good and Evil is a good game, like, and people love it, and I get why people love it, but like, it's not Vampire, right? It's not Half-Life. It's not like something people like desperately waiting for. And like the fact that they've revealed it now almost 3 years ago, and there's still like we don't even have a trailer for the game. Like,
Yeah, we still don't know what kind of game is that? What is
Yeah.
it going to be?
Well,
Is it going to be Breath of the Wild in this cyberpunk setting?
that would be awesome, but it's probably not going to be that. Like, and the fact that it's
I mean,
not
that's
going to be.
I mean, that's an Ubisoft's wheelhouse, but it's also yet Ubisoft open world game where you want to towers.
True.
Except
Lots
now
of
it's got
monsters.
talking animals.
Yes. Talking pig guy. But yeah, it's like now it's going to be more than a year at least before it comes out anyway. And it's just like, it's one of those games that they pulled the trigger on it way too early. And Skull and Bones as well. That's just dropped off the face of the earth. I was really looking forward to that. It seemed interesting. Well, when they first showed it, it was a multiplayer deathmatch thing where it was like, oh, you team up in 4v4 and fight with pirate ships. And I was like, that's not so great.
No, I think that has a very limited ceiling.
And then the second time they showed it, it was like, well, actually, it's got like a campaign and voice acting and RPG elements. And I was like, okay, now you've got my attention because, like, I'm all about like pirate game. Like, I've been wanting this since I played Black Flag, like for you to make a pirate game. But now it's like again, it's just dropped off the face of the earth, which is a shame. Sailed off the edge of the world. That's a thing. Let's do the next one. This shouldn't be too difficult. Expect a new Call of Duty and more remasters from Activision this year. This is from Sean Prescott over at PC Gamer. He writes, in unsurprising news, there will be a new Call of Duty game this year. Activision CEO, I know, right?
What madness is this?
Activision COO Cody Johnson confirmed as much during the company's Q4 2019 financial results call, teasing that playtests have already generated excitement. We don't know who's developing it, but it's unlikely to be Infinity Ward. That studio shipped the Modern Warfare reboot late last year, which Activision claims sold dramatically better than its predecessor Black Ops 4, to the tune of a double-digit percentage increase. That said, the company isn't expecting this year's installment to perform quite as well, but it didn't specify why. During the same call, CEO Bobby Kotick indicated that more remasters are in the pipeline following the successes of the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro remakes. But they won't all be remakes per se. Quote, stay tuned for some future announcements, but beyond pure remasters, there are a lot of opportunities now to innovate and think about totally new content within these IPs, end quote. I'm not going to read that sentence, but it's quite funny.
What IPs do they have?
It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. During the same call, Blizzard President J. Allen Brack acknowledged that Warcraft 3 Reforged hasn't had the smoothest of launches. Where do you want to start with that?
I'm reminded of when the Emperor Hirohito gave a speech to the Japanese people announcing that Japan was going to surrender after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Opened by saying that the war situation has progressed, not necessarily to Japan's advantage. He might as well have said, Warcraft 3 Reforged has not had the smoothest of launches.
You could say that.
I mean, as understatements go, I mean, it's technically accurate.
It's accurate. It's had a pretty bad launch. Like, it proper caught me off guard, though. So we did the Fantasy Gaming League stuff, and Keith picked Warcraft 3 Reforged as one of his games in the draft. And I was like, cool, solid choice. Warcraft 3 Reforged is obviously going to do well. And then it didn't. He's lost a ton of points. But then it's like, I'm reading about this game, and it's like, wow, I assumed it was a full-on remake. And then it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think everyone did.
It's basically a fucking port. And considering you're porting it from PC to PC.
Well, the worst thing is that they advertised it as a remake. And then at some point at BlizzCon 2019 quietly announced that they were not going to include the upgraded graphics that they showed. But nobody noticed, but they didn't actually update the website.
Well, it's not like there was anything else going on around BlizzCon that would have taken people's attention away from like anything Blizzard was saying about any other topic. But yeah, I was like, oh, I must have just got the wrong end of the stick, and like it wasn't a full-on remake. And then I was reading into it and looking at trailers and stuff, and I was like, no, this was supposed to be a full-on remake. I had the right end of the stick.
It was a full-on remake, and then it didn't become it stopped being a full-on remake, and they didn't tell anyone.
Like, what the fuck? Like, how'd you do that? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you think that's gonna go down? Like,
Like,
jeez.
not only is it a remake, it has overwritten and deleted all previous versions of Warcraft 3. You can't play the original Warcraft 3 unless you've got it on it.
Yeah, it's like the launcher
Which,
is now the Reforged launcher, and
which, how does that work if you, I mean, are you just automatically upgraded to Reforge? You
you
craft
patched.
from
I
your
think.
library?
I don't think you're upgraded to the game. It's like, but
Yeah.
I know you're into the launcher because there's a bunch of
Right.
stuff around like custom games, and how they work, and like because there's now a bunch of restrictions on like custom games, and Blizzard owns all of the custom games that are made because they don't want another Dota 2 on their hands. Um,
Which is understandable, but very shitty.
yeah, but it's like you've forced everybody who owns Warcraft 3 into the same situation, like without having to without buying
Which has
Reforged.
which has less features because it doesn't have one of the expansions and doesn't have.
Yeah,
It's like it's almost it's like this Kafkaesque nightmare where it just keeps getting worse.
I honestly thought this was the year they were gonna bounce back. Like Overwatch League Season 3 is like expanding and branching out, and Warcraft 3 is coming, and they're gonna be able to talk about like Diablo 4, and
Yeah,
it's not happening, is it?
no,
This isn't
no.
the year Blizzard bounces back.
It feels like this is also the moment where I think a lot of people have realized that the Blizzard that they knew is no longer the same company. That all the people they knew who were running it was left, and it's now very much just kind of an adjunct and an adjunct to Ubisoft.
Yeah, this is
Full
the
of,
fruition.
full of Bobby Kotick's yes men, unfortunately.
This is the fruition of the story Jason Schreier wrote
Yeah.
at the beginning of last year, which was about this specific thing that you just said, where it's like it feels like Activision might be getting more and more influence over Blizzard, and then it's like, yeah, you look at the last sort of like 14 months, and you go, yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
what
like
happened.
I think Blizzard historically has been allowed to get away, um, basically not releasing stuff until it's done. And I think Activision has just clamped down on that, and as a result, people have left. And
Yeah,
this is what's left. Is they were going to hit they said set the deadline for Reforged. They were going to release it no matter what state it was.
and that was a mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, was it?
I can see Bobby on the phone. Just being like, yeah, we only release Call of Duty, so we need you guys to start releasing some games for us. Excuse me. And the stuff about Call of Duty isn't a surprise, but I'm interested in like a bunch of stuff surrounding Call of Duty, where it's like we don't know who's developing it. Yeah, that's right, we don't, because it was last year when we found out that Sledgehammer was supposed to be making it, but they had a falling out with Raven Software, so now somebody else is making the Call of Duty game. So that's one thing.
The last one was Modern Warfare. One before that was Black Ops. So World War II 2.
Well, that was Sledgehammer Games. They made World War II, and obviously, like in their 3-year development cycle, it was supposed to be their turn next, but that's not the case. So the rumor was that it would be Black Ops 5. Like Treyarch were just going to make Black Ops 5 a year early. And then even Activision Blizzard themselves are saying, we don't expect this year's installment to perform as well as last year's installment. And on the one hand, I get it because it's not Modern Warfare. So like I think it's realistic to assume that nothing that they release this year, unless it's Modern Warfare 2, would do as well as last year's game. But on the other hand, it's like this sounds like a shit show, like behind the scenes, from like yeah.
I mean, I wonder how much they're also wondering that if a new console cycle starting is going to. I wouldn't have thought so. I don't know how that affected.
All they did last time was they released it on the previous gen consoles.
It'll be on every.
And then like
format.
when PS4 and Xbox One came out, it was just like a launch title for them. And like certain retailers did a thing where you could you could buy the previous generation one, and then you could trade it in and only spend like £10 getting the PS4 version of it for your new PS4 console. I remember that was a thing.
Which you would think would make the numbers look better.
It would, because they're buying it twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just sounds like a garbage fire behind the scenes. Like,
Oh, I'm sure it is.
this might not end well.
I think this is again. I mean, you know, returning to the EA thing. I think this probably do have a bunch of studios.
Yeah, they do. There's like, I remember someone. This was a quiz question.
It's essentially what happened to BioWare. Bless their souls. You had a bunch of studios who didn't really know what was going on, didn't really seem to want to talk to each other, and were treading on each other's toes. Among the many things that seem to be going on at BioWare.
Yeah, BioWare's got its own issues on top of that. There was a this was a quiz question when Keith did his quiz. One of his questions was how many developing studios have made Call of Duty games, and it was like nearly 20, I think.
Yeah, that's how games are made these days. At least the AAA ones. It's towards the end. Not towards the end. At some point, available studios just start providing tech support and assets.
Like some of them, like there was the studio. Who was it? Who made the fucking skateboard games? Neversoft. And now all they do is make Call of Duty maps, and it's like, gee, wow.
Well, yeah, they weren't. It's not even just they were doing Call of Duty. They did Guitar Hero for half a decade.
Yeah, like Hyman Studios just helps out on Call of Duty, and it's like they've made actual video games before.
Yeah,
like they made the Transformers games, they made Deadpool, and then all they've done in like since like 2014 is assist doing like Call of Duty and Destiny. And it's like, Jesus. Interesting. Not interesting, it's kind of sad. The line about there are lots of opportunities to innovate and think about totally new content within the IPs of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, and then after he did that, it was leaked that they're just making a Crash Bandicoot Infinite Runner for mobile. Like, innovative. Yeah, great. Congratulations.
Again, it's a conference call to shareholders. When they say innovative, they mean new ways to make money.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to make a new one, all right? It's not going to be the new one that everybody wants. It's going to be a fucking Infinite Runner. Which, to be fair to Crash Bandicoot, playing it kind of, apart from, like, it kind of, like, has a lot of the same sort of mechanics and, like, gameplay perspective as an Infinite Runner anyway, so at least it fits. It'd be weird if they did a Call of Duty Infinite Runner. But speaking of Call of Duty, there's a second news story from this. I'll read some of it. It's interesting. I don't know how much of a discussion we're going to have about it. Call of Duty players spend more in-game after Season Pass and loot boxes are removed. This is from Chris Priestman over at IGN, who writes, Call of Duty Modern Warfare players are spending more money in-game than Black Ops 4 players, either due to or despite the removal of the Season Pass and loot boxes. During Activision's Q4 earnings call on February 6th, company president Rob Kostic answered a question about how removing the Season Pass for Call of Duty Modern Warfare has affected player behavior and in-game revenue. Kostic begins by saying it's important to acknowledge that removing the Season Pass for Modern Warfare was part of a number of changes Activision made to create a better overall experience for our player community. The other changes he mentioned were bringing in cross-play and cross-progression. He then talked about how removing the Season Pass and loot boxes and replacing those systems with the Battle Pass in Modern Warfare enabled more transparency to players so they can see what their money goes towards. That, he says, has worked out really well, as evidenced in a double-digit percentage growth of in-game spending in Modern Warfare over Black Ops 4. I'm going to leave the quotes because that's all the interest. That's all you really
because we're going to synergize new dynamic.
Engagement is up significantly, that kind of thing.
He's using the word engagement twice in one sentence. So
daily average uniques. Like what a way to describe people. They took out the loot boxes, and people have found a way to spend even more money. Patrick, go figure.
What is the monetization situation like with Modern Warfare? Like,
Well, they
is
have a
it
battle pass. I know that much.
uh,
For anyone that
like
doesn't
is
know
it is
how battle pass works, is like a free track where you basically get fuck all, but if you can see the other track, so there'll be like 50 levels of like loot, and like when you level up in the battle pass, you get the next level of stuff and the next level of stuff, and you just pay for access to it.
so is it like Spacebucks for cosmetics, like Ubisoft does?
Yeah, more or less. I can actually let's have a look. Let's bring up the
Because
battle pass.
so I'd imagine there's a number of things going on here. One is that by removing a season pass, you've essentially removed an upper, like a natural upper limit, because people can just spend essentially an infinite amount of money, whatever.
Not necessarily, because
That's why I'm asking,
because the infinite upper limit was loot boxes, right? That was like the potential for profit with loot boxes was
yeah,
infinity.
at least theoretically, yeah.
Let's have a look. So you've got to purchase CP to buy the battle pass in game. So you get Call of Duty points. You spend those on the battle pass. There's like 100 levels. There's 100 levels in the battle pass. So battle passes are seasonal. Um, so like you buy a battle pass and it lasts like 90 days, let's say. Um, and then what you do is you just level it up. It's like a progression bar, like XP almost. So as you're playing the game, you're earning XP towards your battle pass, and then you're unlocking a skin for a weapon or like something else. Every level there's something that unlocks if you've got the paid version of a battle pass. But the thing about battle passes and how they work is there's also currency. So like you could level up and you'll get currency, and there's enough currency in a battle pass to pay for the next one. So if you go all the way up to the maximum level of a battle pass and you haven't spent any of the currency on other unlockables, like on other like cosmetics and stuff, like you can then just pay for the next battle pass. Essentially it's free if you've played the game enough. Because I did that with Dauntless. I bought the battle pass because it was a free game that I played for like 30 hours, and I was like, I'm going to throw the developer some money. And I like leveled it up to the point where it was like, I have enough currency to buy the next battle pass, so I'll just do that. And then I dropped off the game. But yeah, that's how they work basically.
And my other thought was, well, maybe people are I'm trying to think optimistically. Maybe people are spending more money on a game that they're more invested in because we've already established that it's sold. And so, like, wouldn't you want to spend more money on DLC on a game that you're invested in that maybe you bought and played for 5 minutes and figured, sod it? You know, if there's a higher level of engagement.
Yeah, I think a battle pass drives engagement more than loot boxes do because it rewards you for playing the game. So like instead of getting loot boxes, it's just a blind box. Like let's say it was every time you level up you get a free loot box. Cool, I don't know what's in it. I open it. 90% of the time it's crap that I don't want. Whereas with the battle pass, it's like I can look at that battle pass in any moment and see what I'm gonna get. So it's like if there's something at like tier 10 where it's like I really want that, cool, I'm gonna play this game a shitload because I want this thing at tier 10, and then like like I think that's what drives the engagement because you can constantly see what you're getting at all times. And then even then it's like there's still a store in the game. Like so you can still buy I guess like characters, weapon skins, whatever. Like with actual like directly by buying COD points and then spending those in the shop. But again, you're seeing what you're getting. So it's like I always said about Overwatch. I probably would have dropped so much more money on Overwatch if I could have just directly bought skins and
Yeah.
emotes and whatnot than I actually did, because it was like, well, I'm spending money on a series of blind boxes. It's like I'm spending money and I don't know what I'm getting. I could just be taking that money and throwing it into a pit.
Yeah.
So I think that's why this system is earning them more money, as well as the fact that Modern Warfare has obviously sold more than Black Ops did, which probably contributes to it. But yeah, I think there is higher engagement because, like, a lot of people talk shit about battle passes, but I actually kind of like them, like, in terms of like how they work. Like, because it's like if you play the game a lot, it's like you're probably getting your money's worth out of the battle pass, and it's rewarding you for playing the game. And if you play it enough, you don't even need to pay for the next battle pass. But that's just me. I'm very sort of new to that.
I mean, my opinion on season passes is I'm fine with season passes, but I don't me on them until I know what I'm getting from them. Until the DLC hits.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, for the most part, I got the season pass for Smash Brothers, but then I knew in the abstract what I was getting. I was going to get so many characters.
You got the fighter pack. You can get the 5 extra fighters. Like I bought the season pass for Mario Kart 8 on Wii U, but I did it after they'd released everything, and I was like looking at it and went, I see what I'm getting. Cool.
Yeah, like the season pass for Control is on, it's on sale, and they haven't announced. They've announced the names of the DLC, but they haven't actually announced what they are.
Yeah, I know I'm going to get it anyway because of that.
Weird. I haven't got the season pass for Fire Emblem yet, but I'm probably going to get it. I'm probably going to get it now because they've just announced what's going to be.
Yeah, the Cinder, whatever it's called, is going to be out.
The emo goth house.
I think
who live in
the basement, and everyone forgot about them.
No one knew about them.
And now, it's I think season passes work for games like Control and Fire Emblem. I think season passes were always a terrible idea for a game like Call of Duty because, again, you're splitting the player base. You need your players to be able to, as many of your players as possible be playing together. And if only so many of them have the new map content, it's okay, well, you're taking those people and putting them over here, and then everybody else is in a separate place, and then it's you start fracturing the player base. So removing it was a good idea.
Well, that's inherent to DLC anyway. It's not necessarily.
But now it works so much better because they took it out, so all the maps are free, and they're making their money via the cosmetic store and via the battle pass, which works completely differently. It's an entire you're not splitting the player base by having some people have a gold weapon skin, and some people not. Those people can still play together. But it's cool because it's the biggest game of the year, the biggest paid sales game of the year. Obviously, Fortnite was probably a bigger game, but the biggest game of the year made this change, and it's been a positive change. So now, hopefully, more developers will follow suit.
Well, certainly, if the story becomes loot box is not the way forward.
Loot box is not the way forward. Also, these governments keep trying to ban them, so maybe we should pivot.
Yeah, it's guys, we tried. I was going to say it was a noble, well-intentioned experiment to introduce loot boxes, but it wasn't. But
how can we tried. How can we increase our year-over-year earnings? And they went for it. Yeah. Let's move on. Unless you had something else to add, sorry.
No, I was just going to say this is how it's going to continue to be, is publishers are going to continue to try to find new ways to monetize their content in order to maximize profitability. Yeah. That is the late-stage capitalist dystopia that we live in, and it's not unique to the games industry.
It's not. I'm fine with developers, but publishers, monetizing their games. It's how they monetize them. That was always my problem with loot boxes because it was that's shady as fuck. Don't do that. But let's move on to a game that didn't make much money. Unfortunately.
Because of those SJW.
Apparently. Cliff Bleszinski says LawBreakers failed because he was too political. It's from Andy Chalk over at PC Gamer, who writes, "It's a sad reality of the video game business that sometimes, for a variety of reasons, good games fail. Games like, say, LawBreakers, which tanked badly. Its emergency pivot battle royale follow-up Radical Heights held early promise, but it was a rush job and it showed. The games failed for a number of different reasons, two of the most obvious being Overwatch and PUBG. Fortnite actually showed up a little late to really take part in the beatdown. But in an Instagram post that will surely prove unfortunate in short order, Boss Key Studios co-founder Cliff Bleszinski shared some other thoughts on where it all went wrong. Quote, "Ever since the studio closed, I've been racking my brain what I could have done differently. Pivot hard when the juggernaut of Overwatch was announced. been less nice with my design ideas and more of a dictator with them, he wrote. One big epiphany I had was that I pushed my own personal political beliefs in a world that was increasingly divided. Instead of the story being, this game looks neat, it became, this is the game with the woke bro trying to push his hacky politics on us with gender-neutral bathrooms. Instead of, these characters seem fun, it was, this is the studio with the CEO who refuses to make his female characters sexier. Instead of, who am I going to choose, it became, white dude shoehorns diversity in his game and then smells his own smug farts in interviews instead of just letting the product speak for itself. End quote. None of that happened, Cliff. None of that happened. Like, as one of the 9 people who actually played LawBreakers, I can assure you that all of those hypothetical statements that you put out, like, none of them happened. Like, no one was saying the things that you said that they were saying. I don't even remember Cliff Bleszinski. And again, one of the 9 people in the world who was paying attention to LawBreakers before it came out. I don't remember Cliff Bleszinski ever being in an interview and talking about how woke his game was. Like, the only thing I really remember him saying, which was memorable, was he called it the Dark Souls of shooters, which I thought was dumb. But, yeah.
So, I'm going to confess and say that I have not heard of LawBreakers until you sent me this article. So I think the problem was probably that nobody heard of your damn game.
Like, LawBreakers was a sweet as fuck game, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The problems I listed, like, I wrote a thing underneath this that you could probably see on the thing. Like, some LawBreakers facts from one of the 8 people who actually played and loved the game.
Like, fucking Apex Legends came out with no fanfare, and all the fucking worst people complained that there was no white het cis male character for them to play as, and it still did really well.
Yeah, like
critically and commercially.
Like Overwatch, the game that he talks
with
about,
no fanfare whatsoever.
Yeah, and people were bitching about things like Bloodhound's non-binary character, and people were bitching about that. Like, I say people, gamers. It's like Overwatch has an incredibly diverse roster. It's not dead, Cliff. It didn't die because of this.
The subtext for the conversation is that Cliff Bleszinski thinks that the audience for video games is the fucking politics board on 4chan who elected Donald, you know?
Apparently. Like,
that it's gamers.
Yeah. Like, I wrote it all down here because I loved LawBreakers. You can't even play it anymore. Like, I bought it on PS4. I thought it was one of the best games of 2017. And nobody played it. And I wrote down why. It wasn't on Xbox. The marketing, there wasn't any. Like, to this day, like, people have never heard of this game. Like, I tried my best to tell people this game existed. But I'm only one person, like, one voice on the internet. Like, again, he even mentions it. It got beat down by Overwatch and PUBG at the time. Like, both of those games were a thing. It was £25. It should have been free to play with, like, you know, whatever monetization, like, you would put in a game. Like, because I think the price would have put a lot of people off from, like, even trying it. Whereas, like, a free-to-play game where it's like, you download it, play it. Oh, this is fucking awesome. Oh, maybe I'll buy a skin. I'm sure it had loot boxes in it, actually. I seem to remember opening them in the game. But yeah, it's like every word of what Cliff Bleszinski said was incorrect. Like,
it just reeks of, you know, it's weird because he's taking responsibility for failure, but in a weird way that sort of takes blame away from the game and the marketing campaign to basically. It's a very strange argument to be making.
I know,
especially
right?
in 2020. Oh, my game was insufficiently woke. I shouldn't, you know.
Like, get woke, go broke is not real. It's not a real thing.
So he's basically saying, I put too many politics in my game when politics means basic fucking decency.
Like,
like accepting that women and LGBTQ people exist and that not everyone is white.
I don't even know if there were
That's
any
part of,
LGBT people in it. It was like a fairly balanced roster.
Well, in fairness, it's a fucking character-based shooter, so it probably doesn't come up very much. It only comes up in Overwatch because Blizzard tells us Tracer is.
Yeah.
And
oh shit! People are mad. Quick, put the comic out.
Yeah. And the operative word there is tell rather than show. So.
Put the Tracer comic out. But yeah, it's just like he came out on Twitter when he said it. He wrote the post, and everyone wrote articles about it, like the one I just read. And then he complained about clickbait articles and like saying, I said it was one of the reasons why it failed. And it's like, but it wasn't. Like, that's the point like people are trying to get across. Like, he then name-checked, like, marketing, not on Xbox, Overwatch, like, timing was an issue. And it's like, yes, those are all reasons LawBreakers failed. I mean, the fact that it had a gender-neutral bathroom on it did not make the game fail. I can guarantee you that. Because nobody knew it was in there.
If anything, you'd think that making your game political would just bring out the worst people to rail against it and thereby sort of do the job of the marketing for it.
Yeah.
Because it would be downvoted if nothing else.
Yeah, people would have noticed the game.
Yeah. Every time something's the most downvoted game on Steam, it probably boosts sales.
Yeah, like the Epic Game Store thing last year.
It's not good for anyone's mental health.
Like, when the whole thing with Ooblets kicked off last year on the Epic Game Store, and it's like, it was fucking horrible. And like the Ublets devs shouldn't have gotten any of the shit that they got, but I guarantee more people have heard of Ooblets after that than
I only heard of Ooblets reaction to it.
That would have marketed your game better. I mean, don't do it. God,
no, don't. It's a shitty way to market your game. To do it on purpose.
Yeah, don't do it on purpose.
But if if Clippy B had cited to 4chan, this SJW game, they put gender neutral toilets in it. You should totally go and check it out so you can say how terrible it is.
That would have been a twist. Fucking hell.
If you just added Donald Trump and said, Mr. President, you have to ban this game.
You have to ban this.
Gender neutral toilets. We're gonna ban LawBreakers. We're gonna stop them coming into the country.
Here's the thing about LawBreakers.
They're all playing LawBreakers at the border when they're praying to Mecca.
The thing about LawBreakers is, like, and it was mentioned in the article, like, it didn't get killed by Fortnite because Fortnite wasn't a thing yet. Like, remember a time when Fortnite wasn't a thing? I
mean, was Fortnite out?
It was out, but it didn't have a battle royale.
But it wasn't Battle Royale.
It was just the original design of the game. And I found it quite quaint to just think, I remember when Fortnite didn't exist. Like, as a Battle Royale thing.
No, as someone I don't pay attention to Battle Royale games, so, for me, just PUBG was just this thing people wouldn't shut up about that I wasn't interested in. And then all of a sudden people stopped talking about it and started talking about Fortnite. And I was like, wait, that thing Epic released that nobody...
Yeah.
It's apparently Drake is playing it. I'm not too sure who Drake is, but I'm supposed to care.
He's the meme for the rapper. You know the rapper in the meme?
No.
Oh, well, hold on.
I'll take your word for it. He's playing it with someone called Ninja. Apparently I'm mostly supposed to know who that is.
Maybe I know too much about games culture. Got 3 news stories left on the docket. I'm not really too fussed about any of them. Let's just do...
I mean, some of them kind of touch on the stuff we've already done.
They do, that's true. I'll do that one.
Like Rod Ferguson's going to Diablo because Activision's installing its yes men in Blizzard. So,
yeah.
That's all I was going to say about.
Fair enough.
They probably put him there. They probably put him there. They probably put him there because Diablo 4 is probably behind schedule and not coming out anytime soon.
And also, they can't fuck it up. They can't.
They'd like it out sometime before 22. I mean, maybe they can, and it's an excuse for Activision to quietly close.
Fucking hell! Could you imagine if, like,
I mean, if you want to put your tinfoil hat on,
could you imagine, if like Blizzard got shut down. Jesus. Now that would be big.
This is how Blizzard dies, with thunderous applause.
With thunderous BlizzCon applause to yet another hollow, meaningless apology. Let's do this one. The timestamp of that one's going to be epic because it's going to be like a minute long. Phil Spencer says Amazon and Google are Xbox's real competition. This is from Austin Goslin over at Polygon. He writes, with a new console generation right around the corner, Microsoft is setting its sights higher than a traditional console will. Phil Spencer, head of gaming for Microsoft, recently told technology publication Protocol he doesn't view Sony and Nintendo as the company's primary competition going forward. Instead, Spencer sees the future of gaming being fought over cloud computing between companies like Google, Amazon, and of course Microsoft. Quote, when you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward. That's not a disrespect to Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars in cloud over the years. I don't want to be in a fight over format wars with these guys while Amazon and Google are focusing on how to get gaming to 7 billion people around the world. Ultimately, that's the goal. End quote. According to Protocol, Spencer mentioned Microsoft is willing to cooperate with Nintendo and Sony on initiatives like allowing gamers on the various companies' systems to play with and against one another. As for the competition Spencer does name, Google and Amazon, both technology companies, have massive cloud computing infrastructures already in place and are in various stages of rolling out gaming components for those services. I kind of think he's right.
Yeah, I think he's right.
On all counts.
Because what he says is not. He's not saying. I think he's right in that he's not just Sony and Nintendo.
Yeah.
But recognizing that Sony and Nintendo are kind of in a different scale and in a different industry.
Yeah.
That they are perhaps billion-dollar companies, and as opposed to Amazon, right, who are like hundreds of billions to trillion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
You know, it's magnitude. And the telling thing he says is when he talks about the cloud and getting it to 7 billion. What he means is, if we are going to sell gaming infrastructure to China and to India and to areas that are not traditionally like core video game centers, we're going to need to do it through the cloud, because that way anyone with a laptop and a half decent internet connection can play games.
Yeah.
And we're better positioned to deliver that than Sony and Microsoft, who have. I mean, Sony, whose cloud proposition is lacking, and certainly does not have the infrastructure of an Amazon or a Google or a Microsoft to deliver it.
Or Nvidia.
And on Nintendo, whose cloud prospect is essentially non-existent.
I mean, Nintendo, we've always said, I think we've said on this podcast for years that Nintendo isn't really a competitor for Microsoft or Sony, because they just do their own thing.
Yeah, because they're just doing their own thing.
Yeah, and it works for them.
Yeah, it's going to be much easier, though, to just sell, I don't know, a monthly subscription to people in the middle of China is to sell them a $200 to $300 Switch or PlayStation.
Yeah, like I've got the Project X Cloud beta on my phone. It's super easy. Like you just like, I'm assuming it's going to be a part of Game Pass Ultimate eventually, or it'll be its own
when
thing.
When
people
rail against the cloud and say they don't see the point in it, it's because we're not the core audience. The audience,
exactly.
This is a conversation about how do you get video games into the hands of people who haven't had the chance to play video games because of where they live.
Yeah, and it's real simple, and especially if it's tied to Game Pass, which already gives you then access to a library of games. All you have to do is clip this thing to a controller, like clip with a controller, have an internet connection, and you can be playing Halo 5. I did it, like, when I got into the beta. I was sat downstairs just playing Halo 5 on this. Like, it's not going away. Like, as much as Stadia's launch was a disaster, like, that's not going to kill cloud gaming.
This current iteration of Google Stadia is not what's going to do it. But companies are going to keep trying.
Yeah, like GeForce, like Nvidia just launched GeForce now.
And in fairness, Phil Spencer's actually been quite front about what the reason for it is. The reason why is because there is potentially much bigger prize on offer than anyone sees for on the other side of cloud.
100%. Like it's 7 billion people. Like that's a metaphor. I get that. Like they're not.
Yeah,
actually
it's not
trying to get,
literally, but it's potentially it's anyone with an internet connection. Basically, the thinking is anyone who can access Netflix can access.
Yeah, it's like you don't need to buy an Xbox Series X. You just need a subscription and an internet connection and a device to be able to play it on. And like most people have a device like that they can play xCloud on. Like again, like I mean, I've got a phone. Like if you've got a smartphone, you can play xCloud. If you've got a laptop or a Chromebook or a tablet, you can play xCloud. Eventually, it'll be if you've got a smart TV, you can play xCloud. Like if you've got a Fire Stick, you can play xCloud. Like that's what they're aiming for. But they'll still release their consoles. And when Phil's saying this stuff, he's not saying like, PlayStation's fucked because they don't have the infrastructure for this. No, PlayStation will be fine. Like
yeah,
just in a different market. So like the next generation, like they're still going to release their box that people are going to put. Maybe it's not under their TVs because it's quite big, but near their TVs. Like
probably put their TVs on top.
Put their TVs on the box, but like, and they're still going to go after that market. But when PlayStation 5 like shoots off into the distance ahead of Xbox Series X in sales, it's not going to be an issue because they've also got this other stuff that they're focusing on that could potentially earn them a significant amount of money. And that's what Phil's trying to say, and that's why I sort of like open with, I agree with what he's saying. Like,
I agree with what he says.
But like, knee-jerk fanboys.
But it's also easy to frame as, look what Phil Spencer said about the day.
Phil Spencer would say that because his console's in third place. It's like the rules have changed since Sega versus Nintendo. Quite dramatically. We just did that one.
I was completely unrelated. I was watching the video about the differences between versions of the first Mortal Kombat on consoles. Just thinking about how Nintendo completely threw Sega under the bus at the Senate hearings about it. Yep. But he said, you can totally see blood on the Mega Drive version, but you can't on the Nintendo version. It's all Sega's fault. It's like, wow, that's great, industry solidarity there, guys.
There was no industry solidarity. I read a book. About it called Console Wars.
The fucking stones on them, because 6 months later, Mortal Kombat 2 was on the stairs with the blood intact. It's.
I mean,
you lie.
Politicians don't understand what games people are talking about. That's why they say things like, "We don't call them loot boxes. We call them surprise mechanics," because politicians will believe that. Whereas people like us know better. They're not like fucking Kinder Eggs. Fuck off. Should we read this last news story? I mean, we might as well. It's the last one. Ukie report shows the UK games industry has an overwhelming lack of diversity. This is from Imogen Beck-Helling over at Rock Paper Shotgun, who writes, "The first ever detailed report on diversity in the UK games industry has been published, showing some pretty eye-opening statistics about the industry's inclusivity, as well as the mental health of people working in games. Conducted by Ukie, the UK Interactive Entertainment trade body. Basically, it's our version of the ESA. The census revealed that female representation in the games industry is significantly under the national average, with 70% of people working in games being male, just 28% female, and 2% non-binary. On top of that, 31% of UK games workers that answered the survey said they live with anxiety and depression, nearly doubling the national average of 17%. The stats also show that people from... How do you say this? Because I see it on Twitter all the time, but I don't know how to say it.
I just say B-A-M-E.
Do you just say
funny enough, I've never heard it actually said out loud because I don't. I mean, you could say black and minority.
Black and minority.
I think it's mostly for print.
Yeah, because I read it on Twitter all the time when people are talking about this stuff. I didn't know.
Yeah, but in Twitter you got 280 characters. Though, so.
Yeah. So I'll just say BAME. backgrounds make up only 10% of the industry, which is below the average of the BAME working population. While it's still higher than other creative industries, they're still noticeably less represented in senior positions too. LGBTQ plus people are better represented in the UK industry than in other sectors, with 21% of the survey's respondents identifying as LGBTQ plus. This is a significantly higher proportion, according to Ukie, with other data sources indicating that heterosexual people make up between 93 and 97% of the national population. Trans and non-binary workers make up more of the games industry than the national average too, with trans folks making up 3% above the estimated 1% national average of the industry workforce, and non-binary folks making up 2% above the estimated 0.4%. These statistics come from a survey of 3,208 people, which Ukie estimates to be around 20% of the overall workforce. They say responses from London are overrepresented and places like Wales and Scotland are underrepresented, so it's worth bearing in mind that this isn't a complete and total representation of the UK games industry, though Ukie has said they plan to conduct more surveys like this in the future to get an idea of how the industry's diversity is progressing. Quote, diversity isn't a nicety, it's a necessity if the industry is going to grow, thrive, and truly reflect the tens of millions of people that play games every day in this country, said Ukie CEO Joe Twist. By taking such a frank and honest look at our industry through the census and committing to the Raise the Game pledge, which we encourage all businesses to sign up to, we can lay the foundations for the creation of a truly diverse and inclusive sector for all. Let me be honest, the first reaction on Twitter I saw of this was around the significantly higher average of LGBTQ plus people in games compared to the national average, and someone just retweeted it with a quote tweet of games are gay now.
So
fair.
there's a number of things I'm thinking. One,
excuse me.
This is, I think the games industry skews a lot younger than the industry generally, and so I think people are going to be more willing to identify as LGBTQ, and also probably more likely to reveal that they're struggling with mental health. Partly because I think they're more open about it, and partly because I think our generation has been traumatized, and they probably are struggling with their mental health.
Yeah, we're kind of open about it as well.
Because we've been fucked over.
We've been fucked over many times.
And it also explains why there's a lack of diversity in upper management, where, again, most of these people are relatively young and haven't gotten into management yet. It's going to be an industry that skews towards urban areas, especially London, but also, big cities where LGBTQ are probably going to be more visible and more happy to identify as such. People are generally going to be younger and probably struggling to pay rent, so mental health issues.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, that all tracks. I just want to put this in because I thought it was cool. Yeah. It was a nice big census. Cool. We need to do better, obviously, as an industry.
Yeah, more needs to be done. I mean, in terms of representing black and minority ethnicities, that's probably part of a bigger issue related to education and the video games industry's got a lot of high technical skills, which require an education.
Yeah.
And it's harder to recruit from a more economically deprived background.
True. It isn't like get a job in a shop.
I'm not saying that this to defend the video game industry. I'm just sort of thinking this is probably what it's tied into. Is it a part of it's probably also tied into the gender thing. I'd imagine is going to change with time as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's initiatives, going forward, all over the world. I remember we talk about Girls Make Games a few times on the podcast before. It's stuff like that, can then show, because it's about education for sure. Maybe our country isn't brilliant with equality, to put it one way.
Yeah.
But it's also showing people how to get into the games industry, because you could sit as like a kid and go, I want to make a video game because like video games are cool and I love them, but it's like it's not necessarily obvious how to do that. Like
No.
and I feel like there's probably still a lot of like, because like when I was in school, it was like you go to a teacher and you tell them what you want to do, like when you grow up, and then they all they do is like tell you, oh well, you need to do this. Like when I said I wanted to work in films and like in like the media and stuff like that, like what do I do? Like what do I do going to college, going on to like sixth form, stuff like that? Like they recommended I do IT and sociology, neither of which was very helpful in like progressing into university to like learn about how to make films. Like so like I think something like that might go on where it's like IT, like general IT at like college or a sixth form or even high school isn't necessarily massively helpful to a career in video games.
No.
Like learning how to make a fucking spreadsheet. Like it'll help enormously if you're going to be like a project leader or a production or like in production, or potentially like in community management or PR. But if you want to make games, it's not massively helpful to learn Excel. Like, so I think there's a bit of that as well, where it's like we need to like set up pathways to sort of show how to do that, how to get into those things.
It's a big part of a bigger issue, which is getting women into STEM and sort of overcoming the stigma against that, the idea that women aren't interested in science and technology, but also that science and technology are perceived as inherently hostile to women.
Yeah, which I mean, like the games industry itself has that perception because of a vocal minority of gamers who like you do like spend like inordinate amounts of time online shouting at women. Because they suck.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. If you know, a woman said, "I don't want to get into the video game industry because I don't want to get harassed assholes," I would completely understand.
Yeah, it's like it's something like we see and talk about on this podcast like every fucking week sometimes, like because it's shit. But like, yeah. So that's probably another reason why like the numbers might skew a bit low, but I'm sure they'll get better as we move into the future, as the people who with the more backwards notions about life move along. Try to think of a nice way to say die. Like, but
well, maybe take up another hobby and explore definitions of your identity that are not necessarily tied up with the thing you buy.
Yes, that is
good, like
fucking
don't define yourself by your fan of film watch.
Yes,
or the games that you play.
I like gaming is my number one thing, right? Like obviously, I run a podcast, a YouTube channel. Sorry, I'm just plugging my Chromebook in. I run a podcast and a YouTube channel, and I stream on Twitch. And I raise money, do all this other stuff, but it's like I'm not a gamer. Like it's not my main core of my identity.
Like if you're upset with the way the last Star Wars film went, maybe try writing a script for a film you might like, you know, or take up cooking or do sports or something. Just maybe put. I'm not saying you need to do anything too radical.
Yeah,
for Man United or anything, but maybe explore your identity a bit more.
Yeah,
and try not to define it in terms of things you spend money on and on loyalty to companies that want you to give them your money.
Well said. Let's do games out this week. And all the other stuff that we do. On February 11th, Yakuza 5 Remastered hits PS4. On February 13th, Florence hits PC and Switch. And Demon X Machina hits PC. And then on February 14th...
and the Machina?
Florence in the back. And damn, you nailed it. I wish I still had that app on my phone with the rap air horn. I could have done that. I might add it in post. Probably not. On February 14th, Darksiders Genesis comes to PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Warriors Orochi 4 Ultimate comes to PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Street Fighter V Champion Edition comes to PC and PS4. And Dreams comes to PS4. I'm so excited. Dreams looks fucking dope. I'm so in for Dreams.
I think it's going to sync up.
I think it's going to... I said this because I picked it for my Fantasy Gaming League. And I stand by what I said. I think it's going to review really well. But I don't know how many people are actually going to play it. A lot like LawBreakers.
Yeah. A lot like Little Big Planet.
A lot like Little Big Planet.
I think that there probably won't be a lot of people using the creative aspect, and people will just be consuming it, and it'll be a neat novelty in a couple of weeks.
I hope you're wrong, because I really love...
I'd love to be wrong, but it seems strange that we've all stopped talking about Super Mario Maker.
Does it? Because I feel like Nintendo stopped talking about Super Mario Maker.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm salty about that one, because...
Yeah. It's strange. Like they generally have such like a great long tail of games, but they're not really very working on that. Like if they had any damn sense, they'd be on their 5th season pass for Mario Kart by now.
Yeah, or we'd be like highly anticipating the imminent release of Mario Kart 9, like one of the two. But they could like legit monetize Mario Kart for like half a decade at least.
Yeah.
And I'd be down. I'd buy all that DLC.
Yeah, if the DLC was at the DLC that they produced for Mario Kart 8,
yeah,
they could be producing that. Maybe not even necessarily every year, but every couple of years, and it doesn't make sense that they don't. Especially given how big that install.
It's huge. It's the best-selling game on Switch. And people would pay for more content for that game because it's a game that people play constantly. I still play.
It's also a game that you could use if you're to train people on how to buy DLC. Like honestly, people who don't. If anyone's going to do a cute little tutorial on buy content for games, it's Nintendo who will do this. Who do make blog posts saying, "Here's how to get extra content, Fire Emblem or whatever."
Are we creating a monster?
Possibly. I mean, they did a cute little video where Bowser engages parental control.
I remember that video, and it was amazing. So yeah, maybe we are creating a monster. Let's guess the OpenCritic score. Last week, myself and Mr. Moody attempted to guess the OpenCritic score for Zombie Army 4 Dead War. I guessed 78, Mr. Moody guessed 73, and at the time of writing it was a 75, which means Mr. Moody is the winner. And the current scores are Amy 1, co-host 1, because I guessed Warcraft. I get the first week. I don't know, because if you didn't see it, Patrick, the first week I guessed Warcraft 3 Reforged would get an 87, but Moody guessed it would get a 90, so I won by the sheer benefit of being lower than him, even though...
That was never going to get a 90.
I was 29 points away from the OpenCritic average. Honestly thought it was just going to be in a great version of Warcraft. I really wasn't paying that much attention until it all went wrong. This week,
no one was.
No one was. I think that was part of the problem.
Yeah, everyone expected it to be like this all singing, all dancing, gorgeous Warcraft 3.
But to be fair, that's what they said it was going to be.
That's what they said it was. until they said it wasn't, but didn't tell us.
It's like I checked out of watching the trailers for The Last of Us Part 2 months ago, because I don't want to know anymore. And if they did the same sort of thing and did an about face, I wouldn't have any fucking idea, because I'm just not watching them.
Well, I hate to tell you, but it's a pachinko game.
Yeah. Anyway, this week we're going to try and guess the OpenCritic average of Dreams. Patrick, what do you think the OpenCritic review average of Dreams is going to be?
I don't know, because I looked it up and it's already got boards. And it's going to be about reviews rather than things, so I'm going to say 80.
80.
Yeah.
I am going 85. Although I have a vested interest in it being as high as possible because, again, it's in my fantasy gaming league team. The higher the better. Come on, games industry, you can do it. Poor Keith. He got minus 12 points for Warcraft 3.
Oh, no.
It's okay. He's got Doom on his team, so that'll balance itself out.
Will it?
Yeah.
Because nothing's ever gone wrong with Bethesda launches.
It'll be fine. I'm sure. I have, but then I said the same thing about Warcraft 3, so what the fuck do I know, right?
In fairness, when Doom 2016 came out and it wasn't screen review, everyone assumed it was going to be shit.
Everyone did assume because the multiplayer, because the E3 reveal trailer wasn't very good, the multiplayer beta wasn't very good, and they didn't give out review copies, so everyone assumed that they were trying to hide a bad game, and it came out. It was like, fuck, this is amazing. Yeah, I remember that. Fun times. It was a roller coaster for sure. That's going to do it for episode 192 of the Words About Gamescast. Thank you very much for joining me, Patrick. It's a pleasure as always.
That's all right.
I love talking video games with you. You get it. I like surrounding myself with people who get it. I mean,
don't.
You get the fact that we don't get it. We just kind of shrug a lot and go, what the fuck?
I still don't know not terribly sure what LawBreakers is. So
I'd love to show you, but they turn the servers off. It's a lot of fun. It was such a good... Rest in peace, LawBreakers.
It lives now only in my memory.
It lives now in my memory, and a video I put up on YouTube with
Just
some
as
gameplay
he just drops it into the sea off the edge of the boat.
Yeah. I'll light my candle for it tonight.
There was space on the door for...
There was space on that door for LawBreakers. Patrick, say bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.